Hi, I'm Ron.
And I'm Don.
And this is the Ron and Don Show. Thank you for joining us today. We are very pleased to have with us Pavement Exchange and Tom O'Toole from Pavement Exchange. Tom, tell us a little bit about Pavement Exchange.
Well, thank you for having me. Pavement Exchange was started actually out of the back of a minivan by Henry and Mary Miller. Actually, we're a nationwide facilitator. We actually work with about 1,500 contractors nationwide, and we actually have a select group of those contractors called Preferred Member Partners. There's about a little over 30 of them that are preferred, and when one of those are doing your projects, you can rest assured, regardless if it's in Chicago or if it's in Florida, that you're going to get a phenomenal job.
Well, we're very pleased to have Pavement Exchange as our sponsor today, and we're double pleased to have you here. Tom is an expert in his industry. I've worked with Tom on projects in the past. Today our topic is seal coating, chip seal, and overlay, and we're going to take a good look at those.
Let's talk about seal coating. Talk about how you determine when it needs to be seal coated. Can you tell well in advance so it can be budgeted? And then how do you do it? What's the right way to do it?
Sure. Well, seal coating, first of all, is primarily an aesthetic application. There is no structural integrity to seal coating. A few factors that you always want to consider when you're doing any kind of maintenance or building or preventive maintenance is structural integrity, drainage, and aesthetics. Asphalt oxidizes in the weather, so inevitably it's going to need to be seal coated or treated. Now, not everybody has a asphalt maintenance program, so to speak, but however, it is critical to maintain that asphalt prior and be proactive than reactive. So seal coating, it's when you start seeing what's called alligator cracking or block cracking, or you see a lot of longitudinal transverse cracking, asphalt would not be your best application until you treat the deficiencies in the asphalt, and then you can seal coat it. So you either need to repair the bad areas, crack fill the cracks, or treat any other areas before you seal coat.
Now, when you're seal coating, I know I've seen a number of lots that have started to ravel, and that's when the stones are up here and the asphalt's way down here, and there's another stone here, and the stones are coming loose. Does that help before the stones come loose to seal coat it?
Absolutely. So that's very astute of you to recognize that. So your aggregate and your asphalt, when it's exposed to a point where you at least have half of that aggregate, it's almost too late to seal coat. The asphalt, in the seal coating, is a protective barrier. It'll help protrude water and oil from getting down into the asphalt. And water is the last thing you want to get below grade, is why you want to treat any deficiencies before seal coating, or distresses, excuse me, before you seal coat. But so there's several different applications or product for seal coating. It's asphalt emulsion, coal tar, two of the most popular. However, once you get so much of that aggregate exposed, you may want to consider an overlay versus seal coating, because seal coating won't prolong the life of the asphalt. Too much of the asphaltic material has already deteriorated.
All right,
before we get into that, what is the proper technique for putting down seal coat?
Well, there's two ways to install seal coat. One is via squeegee, which is a machine that actually takes the material, puts it on the asphalt, and then a squeegee spreads it out evenly over the asphalt. And the other is by spray technology. It's a spray one. It's a big spray gun that somebody will stand there with and kind of just spray it and go back and forth.
And which one really gets that down into the surface?
Well, if applied properly, with the right amount of product per square foot as recommended by the manufacturer, both are effective. Squeegee puts down a little bit more product. At Pavement Exchange, we do both applications. For a lot of our customers, we'll put first coat squeegee, second coat spray. Sometimes squeegee application is a little more costly than just two coat spray, but we always install two coats. So a lot of the bigger shopping centers that have bigger footprints, trucking terminals, it's not economical for them to put that down, or they don't have the budget for that.
And what about dilution?
Well, you install sand in some product. You can't install too much because it won't come out of the guns or the spray gun or the squeegee. It'll clog it up. So it's very critical to adhere to the manufacturer's recommended additives.
Do you ever get people adding too much liquid to it?
Yeah, actually. So, one primary in any repair or method, at Pavement Exchange, we like to be on site for our projects so that we can maintain and make sure that our contractors, if not a preferred member partner, that they're doing the right thing. We don't have long storied relationships with a lot of contractors, but sometimes we'll only work with somebody 3, 4, 5 years, and we want to make sure that they're maintaining the integrity of what they're saying they're going to do for our customer.
Yeah, dilution is a problem in the industry. Some of the fly-by-nighters, they add a lot of liquid to the seal coat, so you get a really thin layer, and it doesn't do anything for you.
It's the equivalent of watering down a 5-gallon bucket of paint to stretch it.
And if they do that, and for some reason in a cold temperature, it'll look like spider cracking.
Well, let me ask you a question then. We need to move on, but one more question for seal coating. We started this topic with you mentioning that seal coating is an aesthetic process. It sounds to me, the way you've described what it does for the asphalt, it's more than aesthetic. It has some structural value to it.
Well, it re-energizes the asphalt a little bit. You have age hardening asphalt, so in some extreme temperatures, as far as heat goes, you get age hardening, and putting that, keeping that water barrier out, protecting against oil and water intrusion. It will prolong the life. It is a recommended application for sure.
Great.
So we go back to the extending the useful life of the asphalt.
Yes.
Okay, so it's more than just a make a parking lot pretty. Okay, great. All right, well, again, today our topics are seal coating, chip seal, and overlay, and we spent a lot of time talking about seal coating primarily because it is the most preferred application process that restaurants are using out there. And that leads us into the second topic, and that's chip seal. Now, I don't think we're going to spend a lot of time on this because we talked about this before the show. Chip seal is unique in and of itself.
Yes, and in the restaurant industry, chip seal is absolutely the wrong application.
What is chip seal?
Chip seal is just another form of treating your asphalt, but it's a barrier. But unfortunately, in a restaurant application in a parking lot where you have a lot of cars turning their tires back and forth, chip seal is not recommended. It's not good for a lot of foot traffic. It's best used on a secondary road possibly, to where there's no foot traffic and people are just driving over it and not turning their tires. So in a restaurant application, in a parking lot, it's not the best recommended method.
Overlays. They're something that some restaurants avoid and other ones don't, but tell me, when do you need them and how do you do them?
Sure. Well, overlays, when we at Pavement Exchange get a request for an overlay, my primary focus is on the drainage. And again, if I've stated this prior, if I'm not to be redundant, but aesthetics, drainage, and structurally sound is what you'll consider. If I'm not going to overlay over bad asphalt, alligator asphalt, deteriorated asphalt, if I see in a dumpster pad in front of the concrete wheel ruts when I know I have a subgrade failure, which is the dirt. Anytime you want to do an overlay, you have to have structurally sound, something underneath it, and you have to make sure that you're not compromising the drainage of the parking lot. A lot of shopping centers, it's more effective because they're on a hill, they're a lot bigger, you have a lot more fall in the parking lot. In the restaurant realm, it's kind of hard to get that fall from one side of the parking lot to another. In essence, when you overlay your parking lot, you're changing the finished floor elevation of the existing parking lot. You have existing catch basins, you have curb and gutter going into the drains. You just have to be careful. So if your parking lot is alligator, you're probably going to have to take some asphalt out before you put new asphalt back in, which can still be considered an overlay, but it's a different form of overlay.
So you can't hide your problems by simply doing an overlay.
You can.
But not for long.
It's not for long.
Wondered where you were going with that. So Tom, go through the steps of an overlay.
Okay, well, There's two ways you overlay, or the steps to overlay. One is called edge or transitional milling, and one is mill and pave by terms. The transitional milling is where all your concrete tie-ins, all your curb and gutter, all your dumpster pads, if you have ADA ramps, you want to make sure there's a smooth transition there. So the milling machine takes a thicker part out of the asphalt and it transitions to a zero elevation. So when the new asphalt goes over top of the existing asphalt, it's a nice flush application there. Or you can mill the surface down 2 inches, which is usually recommended, and then you overlay it back. Real important when a mill and overlay is taking place that they use tack, because your existing asphalt remaining is cold, and there's not going to be a bond for the surface asphalt to the base asphalt, or the binder as we refer to it. And you have to make sure you don't have slippage, so that tack is very important to use. And make sure your facilitators or whoever's using doing the paving is putting tack down at the.
That's like tack oil is basically painting a liquid oil down there that glues it together.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what I think I'm understanding is that to be cautious, if you're asked to do an overlay on a parking lot, don't screw up the drainage characteristics, and certainly don't expect it to hide all your problems that might exist in your existing parking lot. So it sounds to me like a perfect case scenario of an overlay is you mill approximately 2 inches of the entire existing parking lot, which logically means that you can make your connections to other surfaces smooth.
That's right.
And you don't affect the drainage characteristics of the parking lot.
That's right. And typically it's based on the elevation of the parking lot, whether you do transitional milling or mill and pave.
Okay.
You have to have enough fall, because if you transitional mill, at some point you're going to turtle back that asphalt a little bit, and the water is not going to come out. If you have the curb and gutter, if you have catch curb, which takes the water to the drains, or you have spill curb, which pushes it back out on the asphalt, you're not going to get that. With that turtle backed asphalt, you're not going to get the water to move.
Terrific information. Tom.
Let's just one quick thing on that. Depending on the company rules, you will likely be able to capitalize that overlay, but you may have some write-off you have to take in the process. So, take a look at all the financials for the property before you get into it, because this is not an inexpensive process, the overlay.
Tom, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you being here, and we also appreciate Pavement Exchange being a part of this.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
How do folks get a hold of Pavement Exchange?
You can reach us on our website at www.pavementexchange.com, or you can reach us out of our corporate office in Charlotte, North Carolina, or you can reach me directly. Feel free to reach out to us. We're all on the website.
I'm Ron.
I'm Don.
And I'm Tom.
And this is the Ron and Don Show. Thank you for joining us today. Please subscribe.